conversation largely because this is also something that we started talking about yesterday. While it's not all that the chapter deals with, but really is there a conflict, is there a balance between privacy and disclosure of information? And of course the kind of experience and the position the position through which we are speaking is that we really feel there is a creative tension between privacy and disclosure. We don't believe there can be this neat, fine distinction of this is where privacy ends, public disclosure starts. And this tension is very necessary in a democratic society. And the norms of what is private, what is public is something that has to be determined by the people. And it has to be revisited by people in society on an ongoing basis because it's negotiable. So the last situation we want to be in is the state telling us this is private and this is public, which is exactly what the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill Act. Sorry, please remind myself it's legislation now. That's what the Act has done, where the state is defining for us this is what is private and this is what is public, and this is how the state and every other entity or a person needs to do to protect that information. While our yesterday's workshop discussed a portal where information is disclosed in the public domain, today we have public hearings. We have a public hearing on the impact of digitalization and information that people negotiate with. And there are 3 parameters through which we really try and assess. And it's also to state that it's not that those of us advocating for right to information disregard the right to privacy. We do have utmost respect for people's right to information that should be private, and it's nobody's business to know who went to the hospital for what purpose. But it's a different conversation of how much money went into the hospital, what kind of equipment is there in the hospital. That, for instance, is very public information. 3 parameters that we feel really help define for ourselves and what we fight for and advocate for in terms of what information should be private and what information should be public. Does withholding that information empower me or disempower me? Does disclosing that information actually strengthen my pursuit of justice or dignity, or does it curtail it? And does disclosure of that information actually reveal distribution of public resources or hides distribution of public resources? So our argument of why public fund distribution, whether it's to NFSA, pension, or other entitlements, why it needs to be in the public domain of who got what is because this is public fund, because somebody is getting, somebody else is not getting. So that how that resource has been distributed, it reveals that, and hiding that would actually disempower conversations in a democratic society. And we completely disagree that only information related to the poor and only of schemes should be in the public domain. We have fought very hard for mining information to be in the public domain, mining leaseholders, how much money they are getting, and that's not entitlement holders. So this idea that this disclosure only applies to the poor is something that we strongly disagree with and resist, and we are part of struggles where we're saying that the information of the most endowed is also in the public domain. And there's the last thing that I want to end with is there was a legal framework. There is a legal framework, the Right to Information Act, where this negotiated balance between what is privacy, what is should be disclosed, was something that was crafted and put in legalese out of campaigns' demand. Section 81J clarified that there is certain information that is private, but if that information is in public interest, if that information can be given to a legislator, there were exemptions which said that if you can prove that this information has a public bearing, then it should be disclosed in the public domain, which is why the Prime Minister's degree is no one's private information. If it's information mentioned in an affidavit on which they were sworn and an election took place, it's not private information, which is what the government is arguing in court. So I just want to end with there was a negotiated understanding which was in law, which is exactly what the Digital Personal Data Protection Act removed and amended, because they understood that was the core of where the balance was.